Good morning, students. Yesterday we had ended the video by emphasizing the fact that even in the ancient world, economics was an extremely important factor in determining how much respect you got from the society and your brethren. Okay, it was not always that, yes, because the Brahmins or the ancient Dharma Sutras and the Manusmriti was talking about certain rules and regulations for different sections of the society, and that is what exactly determined how much respect you got. That was not so all the time, because it was because we are human beings and we naturally would like to respect those whom we see as superior to us, and definitely not the ones whom we see inferior to us. So students, you have to understand quite it is the things are not as easy when they say that, yes, the Brahmins would be at the top of the hierarchy, followed by the Kshatriyas, and then the Vaishyas, and then the Shudras. Students, because at the same time you'll have to understand, as I gave you the example of Dronacharya as a test case whereby he was a Brahmin, very learned, and came from a great pedigree as well. His father Bharadwaj Muni is one of the Saptarishis, and there would be millions of Indians who carry the gotra of Bharadwaj, but then led the life of extreme poverty because he didn't find patrons. You have to understand that it is the same Brahmins, it is only the Brahmins who have been told to to get into the life of getting bhiksha from it's what is bhiksha? It is essentially, in pure terms, it is just begging for food grains from one house to another. So that is what is very rightly written here in this paragraph here, varna and the access to property, whereby if the provisions were actually implemented, whereby the Kshatriyas and the Brahmins, it gives an impression, of course, that they used to wield all the power, all the authority, everything flowed from them. They were literally the fountainhead of everything which flowed within the society. But then, had it been so, that's what it mentions very wisely here. Had it been actually implemented, the wealthiest men would have been Brahmins and the Kshatriyas, and they would have not come from any other community. But we all know Vaishyas were extremely rich, extremely affluent, wielded enormous power within the king's court. That is how it was, because ultimately it was about how much resources you had, at that, even in those years, how much access to resources you had, and naturally how wealthy you were. So it was not always about everything being determined by the saying, the Brahminical view of the society. And as it is mentioned in the last paragraph here, some of the best known of these were developed within the early Buddhism, 6th century onwards. And the Buddhists, this is important, students, the Buddhists recognized that there were differences in society, but did not regard these as natural or inflexible. So they always felt that, yes, because society keeps moving, it keeps evolving, it keeps churning. So naturally, changes are bound to happen. But then Buddhism also believed that these changes were mostly and were also mostly brought about by humans. So if the humans are responsible for these changes, then there is no reason why humans can't change those changes, if I may put it that way. And say they also rejected the idea of claims to status on the basis of birth, because students, you have to understand Buddhism and even Hinduism too, because the whole foundation of Buddhism and the Hinduism and is based on the fact of karma, right? Your actions, and it is your actions that determine, if not guarantee, your place within the society, your respect within the society, and your standing within the society. So Buddhism was all about karma, and so has been Hinduism. So because Hinduism, for example, like Rig Veda did come up with the Varna system. The later lawgivers did come up with the Jati system, but none of them say that the Brahmin is not supposed to work. The Kshatriya can, keep remaining on the horseback and keep hunting deer and lions and tigers the rest of his life, and they do not need to work. And it would be the responsibility of the Vaishyas and the Shudras to really ensure their upkeep and just to ensure that they have a comfortable life. No, nowhere is it is mentioned like that. Everywhere it has been the primacy of karma, right? So coming to the guys, go through this box. The wealthy Shudra. This is an interesting one. This story based on Buddhist text in Pali known as Majjhima Nikaya, is part of a dialogue between the king named Avantipura and a disciple of Buddha named Kachana. While it may not be literally true, it reveals Buddhist attitudes towards Varna. Avantipura asked Kachana what he thought about Brahmins who held that they were the best caste and that all other castes were low, that Brahmins were a fair caste while all the other castes were dark, that only Brahmins were pure, not non Brahmins, that Brahmins were sons of Brahma, born of his mouth, born of Brahma, formed by Brahma, heir to Brahma. Kachana replied, what if a Shudra were wealthy? Would another Shudra or a Kshatriya or a Brahmin or a Vaishya speak politely to him? So, guys, again we come to the question, the biggest question of if. Now, or here you can call it the age question, which has been there for ages, right? Avantipura replied that if a Shudra had wealth, or corn, or gold, or silver, he could have as his obedient servant another Shudra to get up earlier than he, to go to rest later, to carry out his orders, to speak politely, or he could even have a Kshatriya or a Brahmin or a Vaishya as his obedient servant. Guys, that's what we have been seeing throughout this chapter, and that's what I've been arguing throughout the chapter. Guys, ultimately, it all boils down to economics. That's because that is what always determines the human nature. That's how we have always perceived people, right? Now, Avantipura conceded that there was no difference among the Varnas on this count. So, an alternative social scenario, sharing wealth. As far as we've been examining situations where people either claimed or were assigned status on the basis of their wealth, however, there were other possibilities as well. Situations where men who were generous were respected, while those who were miserly, that is stingy, कंजूस जिसको आप कहते हैं, or simply accumulated wealth for themselves were despised. One area where these values were cherished was ancient Tamilakam, where, as we saw earlier, there were several chiefdoms around 2000 years ago. Amongst other things, the chiefs were patrons of bards and poets who sang their praise. Poems included in Tamil Sangam anthologies. What is, guys, anthology? Anthology is essentially collection. It's a collection of poems and it's a collection of writings. So in sometimes if you go to a bookshop you would see something like Satyajit Ray anthology, or something like H.G. Wells anthology, or probably Shakespeare anthology, something like that. Okay, because it is a collection of work, not exactly always poems, students, but it could also be collection of different kinds of writings as well. So, often eliminate social and economic relationships, suggesting that while there were differences between rich and poor, those who control resources were also expected to share them. So, students, this is just about, if you are benevolent, not just rich for yourself, but they basically you are benevolent, you have this habit of distributing that wealth with the other sections of the society. If you feel that not a question of if you feel that you have a very strong sense of feeling that yes, everything is not my own, these are resources that I also depend for these resources I also depend on other people. So all that wealth is not mine. I should also share it with the different sections of the society. So those people were more respected than the ones who only lived for themselves and had fun for only they used to have fun with their family members. So, you know, that's it. Explaining social differences, a social contract. The Buddhists um, Students, this is an important paragraph here. The Buddhists also developed an alternative understanding of social inequalities and of the institutions required to regulate social conflict. In a myth found in the text known as the Sutta Pitaka, they suggested that originally human beings did not have fully evolved bodily forms, nor was the world of plants fully developed. All beings lived in an idyllic state of peace, taking from nature only what they needed for each meal. However, there was a gradual deterioration of this state as human beings became increasingly greedy, vindictive, and deceitful. This led them to wonder, what if we were to select a certain being who should be wrathful and indignation? We shall continue, but students, this is exactly and much before Buddhism did. Uh, we have been actually talking about the exactly the same thing, that humans, the things like Satyug. We start with Satyug, where everything was pure, everyone was speaking the truth, no one was greedy, people cared for each other. That was a point of Satyug. And then from Satyug we have the Treta Yuga, when the complexities of the society came up. People became more deceitful, people became liars, people started lying to each other, people started eyeing each other's property, each other's wealth, wanted to rob it. So it was about me and my family and my wealth, and that was Treta Yuga. And by the time that is Treta Yuga, we have Ramayana. If we Treta Yuga is symbolized by Ramayana, and after that we had um, the Dwapar Yuga, where you have Mahabharat, which symbolizes the Dwapar Yuga, and you see that in Mahabharat, by Treta Yuga, that you see Ram is being respected by all his brothers, and every brother loves each other, and of course there are internal politics, but yes, everything is within control. Yes, but then by Dwapar Yuga, we see the brothers are fighting brothers. Then, right in the right in front of the ruler of Hastinapur, right in the courtyard, right in the within the palace, rather, you have the Chirharan incident, one of the most shameful of when you talk about Indian history. So all of that started happening by the time you were in Dwapar Yuga. And naturally, today we have Kali Yuga. So, the situation of Kali Yuga, the less said, the better. So, this is what exactly, Hinduism had been saying, or the Sanatan Dharma had been saying long, long time back. You have to understand, students, Buddhism came 600 years before Christ, that is 600 years BC, and Indian culture and civilization existed much, much before that. But the ethos, what they are trying to say, that remains the same. That in the earlier times, things were easy, things were simple, innocence prevailed. But gradually, as the structures of the society started becoming more and more complicated, it started becoming more and more difficult to manage. Then people started looking for shortcuts, cutting corners, being deceitful, lying to each other, and then all that, you know, you know, that that's what it is about. Okay, so we shall continue tomorrow. Thanks.